Talk Diz, a show that gives you everything you need to know to help make your Disney vacation as magical as can be in just about 20 minutes. I'm your host, Jeff Coviello. With me each week is Disney Master Sandy from Easy Diz by Interested Persons Travel Services. Sandy, how are you this week?
I am ready for adventure, Jeff.
Well, you hit it right on the head. We're going to start with that word, adventure. That is the key word this evening. But we are talking not Adventures by Disney, which you hear from us often. We're talking about Disney Cruise Line, the adventure.
Right. So way to confuse all of us with the wording.
Well, we'll try to clean it up for folks so that they understand exactly what we're talking about.
DCLDA as opposed to ABD, if those of you are playing the Scrabble game of acronyms.
So it's the name of a new Disney Cruise Line ship for those folks that are still confused, even though we're trying to clear it up for you. The Disney Adventure. Give us some basics about what we need to know about this new ship.
So I don't know how we got here as quickly, except Josh tomorrow has Disney Cruise Line expansion on the brain. The Disney Adventure will be the 8th ship in the Disney fleet.
Wow.
And I'm not going to say that I'm that old, but when I started in the industry, there were 2.
Yeah.
They have brought on a lot of them very quickly. And even though we're talking about this being the 8th ship that's going to start sailing about 14 months from now, number 6 and number 7 still have not started sailing. So that tells you how quick they're going with the expansion. We've got the Disney Treasure coming in about 2 months, the Disney Destiny coming about 13 months from now, and then 14 months from now, we will have the new Disney Adventure. And it is not like anything we've ever seen with Disney Cruise Line before in so many ways.
Well, let's kind of break down what those ways are, right? Because we've talked about this for seems like a little bit of time now. We knew it was kind of coming, but it's unique because it was not a ship that was originally commissioned by Disney.
It was not. It was originally named the Global Dream, and we couldn't have another dream in our ships.
No. So we just said adventure, which confuses no one.
That's right. This ship was commissioned and the hull was built under the direction of the Genting Hong Kong Cruise Line, which declared bankruptcy.
Right.
So Disney got a steal on a ship, if there's such a thing.
Sure.
You all think the housing market is crazy.
It's not just you and I. Like we wouldn't go
partially used ship market.
Yeah.
But what it means is we've talked about how Disney Cruise Line has sister ships, and there's all of these basics that carry through from all of them. Because the hull of the ship, and that's the real bottom and the kind of the outline of the ship, was already built. We've got a whole new style to this that we've never seen before. And sadly, I'll say, probably the vast majority of our listeners will never see, but prove me wrong. Start booking this ship.
Yeah.
Because I kind of pride myself on the number of ports that I've sailed from with Disney. My current number is 8 for those of you counting New York, Port Canaveral, Port Everglades, Port of New Orleans, Port of San Diego, Vancouver, Barcelona, and I had one other in Europe. I'm trying to remember where. Oh, in Copenhagen we sailed out of. So I've done 8. This will be my 9th that I am adding. This is Port of Shanghai.
Wow.
So if you're an East Coaster like me, after a brief 19-hour flight,
yikes,
you will make your way to Shanghai. But talk about Disney bucket list, 2 birds, 1 stone here. You will be able to get on this newest ship, and this ship will hold the distinction of being the closest ship to any Disney theme park. They are just 48 minutes from Shanghai Disney.
Wow.
And
okay,
I haven't been yet. That Toy Story Hotel is calling me. I've been scoping it out. This is going to be a good trip.
Okay, that's a lot. And obviously it's awesome information, and the last part was really, really cool. Let's kind of get back to the ship a little bit, because you mentioned that it was originally named Global Dream. by a different cruise line that had commissioned it. Disney got the bargain basement price. Of course, I'm sure they didn't pay hardly anything for it. But then they retrofitted it to fit their
nothing
needs.
like a couple $1 billion between friends.
It's just, between us. But then they retrofitted it to meet their needs and then to tell the stories that they're going to tell with it. Give us a breakdown just for perspective of the size of some of the other ships that we do know in the Disney Cruise Line fleet versus what this one is.
So this was a little mind-blowing to me as I put the numbers together, even though I knew many of them. Disney Magic and Disney Wonder, the original ships, 84,000 tons. So measure that one on your bathroom scale.
Sure.
When we get to Wish and Dream, everything in that category, 188,000 tons. But the Adventure will be the largest that they have at 208,000 tons.
Oh my God, it's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. What about the length?
Lengthwise, we're not going to see a big jump. Obviously, the Magic and the Wonder, you definitely feel like they're smaller because they are. You're not walking 3 football fields. But here, the Wish length is 119 feet. This is going to be 1,122 feet. So only 3 foot longer. Not a big difference there.
So
but the next spot,
the next two are the next two are really, I think, the big question, right? Because if you've been on a boat, there are really two things that really strike you, and that one is the number of decks, and the other is how many people does it hold, right? So let's take that in the reverse order of what I mentioned it. Give us how many it holds.
Listen to this one.
Yeah.
Disney Magic holds 2,700 guests.
Okay.
Disney Wish holds 4,000 guests.
We're getting more. I'm sensing we're getting even bigger now.
If you put the Magic and the Wish together, you get 6,700 guests, the number of people that could be sailing aboard the Disney Adventure in any one sailing.
Wow.
So think about that. Those of you who have seen the ships, even if you've just been on one or the other, but you've seen photos, take all the guests of the Magic and all the guests of the Wish and put them together on the Adventure. That's a lot of people. Now, I will say it should be interesting because I will give a little bit of a slam of Americans here. We do not do well waiting online. We are not patient. We want to find a different way in. And I think we're going to see such efficiency in the port in boarding these 6,700 people that it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see where it ports. Unfortunately, my belief, and this is just a belief, they have not confirmed this for me, but because it's only one ship and because it's going to sail out twice a week, it will not be a dedicated terminal at this point.
Okay.
So it'll be like when you went to Port of Vancouver, Port of New Orleans. Disney does a great job getting their banners up and giving you those Disney touches, but you're not going to get like that famous Mickey ears that you walk into to board the ship because the terminal is not being retrofit for that.
So we went over the tonnage and we went over the length, and the length is not all that different. So in order to make up that tonnage, we've got to go up, right? So let's talk about how many decks.
This one also, I feel myself getting lost, and those of you who are Stairmaster fans, just run up and down here. Disney Magic, 10 decks. Disney Treasure, 14 decks. Disney Adventure, a whopping 19 decks.
Wow.
Again, the original builds, kind of think of, somebody frames a house and runs out of money, and then you come in and you do all your finishes. The house may turn out totally different than it was intended, which is the case here with the Adventure. But those bones are what we have to work with. So
that's
19
crazy.
Decks. This was built to be a mega ship.
Well, it is a mega ship. So congratulations. We're excited for it. But let's talk about dining, right? With that number of people, we always talk about the rotational dining on the Disney Cruise Line ships. Is that changing because it's such a different size, such a different amount? How do they plan to handle dining?
So this is a little shocking to me, and genius Disney with your marketing here. not only is my plan to book the inaugural, but I'm going to have to book back-to-back cruises because they still have rotational dining. It wouldn't be Disney if it didn't. However, again, all the guests of the Magic and all the guests of the Wish together, they can't accomplish that in 3 dining rooms.
No.
So this ship will have 6 different dining rooms. There are 2 unique rotations. So you will either go from the Hollywood Spotlight Club to Animator's Palette to the Pixar Market Restaurant, or the Navigators Club to Animator's Table. You want to bet how many people show up at the wrong one? They both start with the same word.
Yes.
And then the Enchanted Summer Restaurant. So there's amazing rotations in either of them. They start with similar themes. The Hollywood Spotlight and the Navigators Club, both Mickey and Minnie will appear in those. Those are going to be kind of that, Fab Five welcoming meal. Obviously, Animator's Palette and Animator's Table, very similar. And I'll tell you what the difference is. It's what we see on the ships that we have already. If you've sailed the Magic and the Wonder, you know that Animator's Palette, the drawings all change while you're eating. Animator's Table on this ship is going to be the newer version where you do your own sketch and it comes to life. So they're offering both options on this ship.
Cool.
The biggest difference will be in that 3rd restaurant, the Pixar Market Restaurant. As its name implies, the best of Pixar Studios, and that is going to be a buffet option. And then for breakfast and lunch, and then a sit-down dinner spot. So that's going to be a main restaurant for everybody. And then the opposite people from there will be in the Enchanted Summer Restaurant, which will feature both Tangled and Frozen interspersed in one. So when I read that, for those of you that have ever been to the Art of Animation Resort, that's immediately what came to mind for me. If you go to the quick service location in Art of Animation, it offers all 4 themes like they have in the resort. So as you move from section to section of seating for the quick service, you see different themes. So here it will be sit down, but you may be in the Tangled section, you may be in the Frozen section.
I mean, and you get into those massive numbers, these are the types of things that you have to do. So kudos to them to trying to really figure out how to make it unique and still tell story, which has got to be really, really challenging.
I will say we have not seen a deck plan yet. I don't anticipate getting it until much closer to when the booking window opens. All I can say is they better have put some more elevators.
One of the things that I know you are a big fan of on these ships are the other sit-down options that are in addition to the rotational dining. Do you have any information on any of that?
We've got 3 options, and they're all very different. But again, if you're a Disney cruiser, this first one will not be a shocking option for you. Palo Trattoria.
There you go.
18 and older only, featuring antipasta, pasta, pizza, seafood, steak, all paired perfectly with Italian wines and fine, bold crafted beers. So yet another version of Palo that we'll see. Based on the drawings, it's going to look different than the others. We won't have the Venetian masks. We won't have some of the other pieces we've seen. But again, we'll have to wait 14 months and see. Unique to the Shanghai area is an obsession with Monsters, Inc. So Mike and Sully's will be on board. It's a Japanese-style, family-friendly restaurant. It's going to be a full-service Japanese steakhouse, an optional teppanyaki room, or a chic sushi and sake bar. So all done in blues and greens, paying homage to our friends Mike and Sully.
That sounds great. I mean, that sounds wonderful. You can't beat that. What about like for folks that are looking for just like some quick options, like the quick service stuff that they have on decks?
So they're going to have Grandma Tala's Kitchen, obviously inspired by Moana. It's going to have Asian and South Pacific flavors. Molly's Eatery, of course, out of the Jungle Book, rich Indian, vegetarian, and regional dishes. So if you're not hearing it, one of the things that struck me immediately is they are catering to more different standard palates, people who are always eating Indian, where you can get that on request on the ships out of the US, but here there's going to be all of those options. And if you are the American headed over there, Stitch's Ohana Grill, the go-to spot featuring classic American fare. Great. I know where I'm going for my burger and chicken fingers.
Listen, when you're on this ship, if I find out from anybody that you've chosen burger and chicken fingers, I may never speak to you again.
I will say I am the official pizza taster, so
that's fine. That's fine.
Safe on the chicken fingers. And then the other option that they have is the Buccaneer Bar. It's going to be a high-end brewery type atmosphere with live sporting events back to the U.S. for those of you watching U.S. television, as well as some things going on throughout the U.K. So there is definitely no shortage of eateries here. It's going to be hard to get to all of them. And that doesn't even take into account the town square. So again, I mentioned that this ship, the Bones, were not built for Disney. And if you've been on some of these other mega ships, this interior kind of big garden space in the middle so that you're on this mega thing, but you feel like it's wide open. We're going to have here the Disney Imagination Garden. So lots of grass and places to walk, but things kind of off to the side, different little cafes and everything. So lots of different great options for everybody everywhere.
And it's going to be probably very strange to have all of that on a ship, right? It's just going to be
it's like 2 ships worth of stuff all on one.
Oh, okay. How about pools, right? There's always a lot of information about different pools on all these ships. There's adult areas, there's family areas. What do we know about the pool options on the Adventure?
Amazing. We should call this the Disney Amazing. That's what they
That's what it sounds like. I mean, it's crazy.
Are you ready? Because this is big.
Yeah.
One section is Marvel Landing. Larger than life Marvel characters, all from the universe, coming out to recruit you to join their superheroes. They're also going to have 3 attractions. Did you hear me? 3 attractions on this ship. Test run, let me try again. I'm too excited here. Pins, Quantum Racers, and the Groot Galaxy Spin. Where we've watched water coasters at sea, this is a coaster at sea without the water.
That's crazy.
High up above the deck. So again, if you've been on the Dream, the Wish, you've been up on the Aqueduct and been up high on those things. Well, I finished telling you on deck 14. Now you're going to be up above deck 19 in this open air car on a track above the ocean.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'll be giving my review from the ground, not firsthand from the coaster.
So that's in the Marvel Landing area, is that what you're saying?
Correct. Up on the top pool deck.
Okay.
You'll also find Toy Story Place. It's going to be your family pool, multiple whirlpools. Splash Zone is going to be there, different smaller coasters, and of course it wouldn't be a Disney cruise ship without the funnel vision.
Right.
And if that all sounds like a lot and overwhelming and loud and in your face, head to Wayfinder Bay. Inspired by Moana, it's going to be an area with a smaller pool, a bar, an amphitheater, but it also is going to have unique shows and interactive events there at times. So a good escape as long as you check your navigator and make sure there's nothing big going on.
I like how you're like, if that's too much for you, just go over to the place where there's also an amphitheater.
As long as they're not in session, it's a good quiet spot. And if not, go hide in the spa.
Yeah, okay.
Same.
I could live with that. So I mean, just it sounds like just three unique areas that are just incredible. One of the
Now you
things,
know why I'm telling you one sailing is not going to be enough
well,
for
well,
me.
that's what I was just gonna say. It's so, we're not even at the end of the program, and there's just so many things on the actual ship that I don't even know. I don't even know where you would begin. It just sounds so. It's actually overwhelming, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's going to be a lot. I've already, in less than 24 hours, created my plan of attack. I will have a list for the first sailing with that 3-dinner rotation and a separate list for the second half. Again, it's tapping into a new market. They are honestly not expecting a lot of us Americans to go over there.
Right.
There will be some on every sailing, I'm sure. But it's really creating for people from Asia and Australia, New Zealand, who don't want to take that 19-hour flight here. It's creating another opportunity for them.
Yeah.
And so while we haven't been given the full itinerary yet, we know that the maiden voyage is going to be a 3-night, and the 2 days are days at sea.
Right.
You're not even getting off the ship. For 2025, because it's only sailing for 1 month in 2025, and into 2026, it is going to be almost all 3 and 4 night sailings with a very limited number of 5-night sailings. It's to bring that new Asian market in. And again, I think even if you had a 10-night sailing, I don't think you'd feel like you did it all.
It doesn't sound like it. Are there any other areas that we haven't mentioned? I mean, it sounds insane that there could be anything else.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's correct to say sadly yes. We haven't talked about the San Francisco Street, an area that's set up as a family entertainment vibe. So it's going to be a market, an arcade, shops, the theater. So it's kind of its own zone with all of that entertainment. You'll get a nightclub or two in there. And then there's another multi-story area that looks almost more amazing than the Imagination Garden. It is the Town Square. And their tagline to it is that it's celebrating royals from across the magical realms of Disney. This is where you're going to find the main statue on the ship. It is going to be Snow White standing at a wishing well. And again, there's going to be all these little offshoots from it. So you might be in the main lobby, but then you're going to go off to the side there, and there's going to be a shop, and then there's going to be a cafe, and all these little things to keep you busy. And from the artist rendering we've received, that area in particular has just like the phenomenal statement piece chandelier. So I'm going to say to you, that's it. But I'm also going to say to you, there's no way this is it. This is the preview that they've given us
Sure.
for booking. I see very little mention of bars here. I have no doubt that there will be several. There is also the Disney Discovery Reef, which is an open-air breezeway. Again, more little eateries, bars, cafes. So there's going to be no shortage of places to get food. I am sure these poor room service people are going to be going up and down 19 decks.
Yikes.
But
well, let's you're kind of going where the last bunch of questions that I have. We talked so much about what the ship has to offer. Typically, when we do these shows, we go in like incredible detail of the rooms. I don't even know that we have time to do that. But what have you heard about the rooms?
I don't have a lot of incredible detail yet.
Okay. Well, that's good, because otherwise we're going to take too long. So give us what you do have, and then obviously as it gets closer.
Give you a little bit, and then I'm going to give you the very unique thing on these rooms. So we have obviously seen some artist renderings. I'm not seeing them themed like we've seen everywhere, but that doesn't mean that they won't be. They're all going to have those Disney touches. You're going to have standard insides, so that's going to mean that no split bath. Deluxe insides with the split bath, the ocean view with a split bath, a deluxe ocean view. So it's interesting that they call it the deluxe. They didn't throw that word family in there. So you're going to have balcony rooms. We're going to have a lot of what we've seen. Let's be honest. The rooms aren't that big to go wild.
Right.
But here's where we are going to go wild. We've got a lot of concierge categories. We've got 9 different categories, including that ever popular 4C, as we know it around here, that family stateroom with veranda on the concierge. It's interesting that not all of the balconies will look onto the ocean. So you're going to need to look carefully at what you're booking, talk to an agent. Some will look onto the ocean. The majority will look onto the ocean. But some will look into those gardens that we were just talking about. I was just going to say
that's logical, that some would be looking down at the garden.
But here's where my mind is a little blown, I have to be honest. The concierge rooms, and again, there's about 145 of them, which is a huge number. And because of that, you have the standard concierge lounge that we're used to. You have a private sun deck that we're used to. But how about this? They've got their own fitness facility, their own luxurious spa, and their own high-end retail stores. They get their own stores. It blows my mind.
Oh, man. Just where do you just spend more money? Give me more money. Here you go.
So here's my problem on the give me more money. I need to do at least a back-to-back. And there's no way that I can be 48 minutes from the theme park and not go visit.
No, so of course not.
You won't be hearing from me with that long flight and time change.
Yeah.
I do think if you're a diehard American Disney fan, I would say no less than 10 days for this trip, ideally 2 weeks.
All right,
and that's not even to see any of the country. That's
just to do the Disney
immerse
stuff.
Yourself in Disney.
Yeah. All right. So before
Shanghai has some really cool things outside of Disney that I'm stoked to see.
I know.
Can you imagine things outside of Disney?
No, it's crazy. Right, before we go into essentially the sailing and the booking and things like that, the one thing we didn't talk about is entertainment. And I know that when we're going into this new market that they're trying to really explode in, obviously English is not their first language, but there's a tremendous amount of English spoken over in that part of the world. What do we know about the language in regards to the entertainment in the shows? Because that's a big part of people's cruising experience.
Most definitely. We know that the ship, for the most part, will be Mandarin and English.
Okay.
English, again, I've said this in some of our Adventure by Disney shows. Spoiled Americans, we expect the world to speak English, and the majority of them do. So you will find that announcements are going to be made in Mandarin and English. Your servers are going to be able to speak to you in English if you're American, but Mandarin if that's your preference.
Right.
We are being told that, kind of like I say to the guests going to Disneyland Paris, you're going to need to watch your Times Guide a little bit more carefully. The good news is bingo in every language. So have no fear.
There you go.
But check the Times Guide for what language different activities are being presented in, because there are going to be some that are only in Mandarin, and then there's going to be an alternate time that's only in English. So it is going to take a little bit more planning as you're walking through these masses with so many other things to do if you aren't well-spoken in both, to make sure that you only get English shows.
Well, or the alternative, you've got a year, just learn some Mandarin. I mean, I think that's probably where you're going to land, right? You're going to be fluent in Mandarin by the time you get on this boat.
I think I may have shared the story before. If you ask my daughter about my language skill, she will tell you I am fluent in 2 languages. The first is English, and the second is Sandianese. I say the word, I put an accent on it like I'm from whatever country we're in, and I pray.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually was expecting you to say English and retail is really what I was expecting you to say.
No. I wish I had the gift of language like my daughter, but I do not. So I will not even attempt to butcher that language.
All right. So I mentioned you got about a year, but so tell us, when does it sail, and then when can we book this?
December 15th, 2025 is the inaugural sailing. Please join me. Again, that's going to be a 3-night sailing, 2 days at sea. And I'll share a little unique booking thing. The last several Disney ships that have come out, if you booked the maiden voyage, your deposit was due immediately and your deposit was non-refundable. With this, they are giving you 1 day to make your deposit, so you can think about it without that pressure of, doing it that second. And the deposit is non-refundable for suites and concierge, but will follow the regular refund policy for the rest of the ship. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, well, because it's a big commitment. It's a totally different experience than sailing out of Port Canaveral or anything.
It is very different. And I always say one of the tough things when you book international trips like this one is that international airfare usually comes out 11 months prior. So you're booking this without a good feel. You can look at this year's rates for air, but to actually know the real rates in the schedule, you won't be able to do that until at least 6 weeks, if not 8 or 9 after you've booked, depending on your carrier.
Yeah. Well, listen, I can't imagine there's anything else, but is there anything you'd like to leave the listener with? We went a little bit long tonight. I hope people indulge us. There's so much to talk about. Is there anything that you want to leave the listener with about this Disney adventure before we say goodnight?
So most importantly, I'm supposed to say that booking begins December 4th of 2024. Depending on your Castaway status, it will go all the way through December 10th for the general public. But then I have to give you a little asterisk because since this ship is in Singapore, everything that they're doing is based on Singapore time, which I think will also make it very difficult when you go to do your booking.
Yeah.
So while it opens December 4th at 8 a.m., that 8 a.m. is Singapore time. It will actually open for booking, and we've never had this before, December 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern, a p.m. release. I'm usually up at 6 a.m.
Oh,
so
good.
Again, you're going to want to, when you decide that you're going on this ship, depending where you're coming from, you're losing a day as you fly there. You're gaining it on your way home. But if you're departing on December 15th on that inaugural and you just want to, which I'm not recommending, land and go right to the ship, you would actually leave the East Coast on December 13th to arrive there on the 15th. So definitely do some careful planning with these dates to make sure you're translating Eastern or Pacific time to Singapore time.
Well, that was a lot, and I really appreciate all the information because this ship has been something that I've had my eye on just because I'm so intrigued by it. It sounds like a really incredible adventure, pun definitely intended. I appreciate you taking the time to break it down. And as we get a little bit more information, I'm sure we'll revisit it. But let's keep an eye on that December 15th, 2025 inaugural sailing. And have a great week.
I can't wait to sail, and I hope you all come with me too.
And that's a wrap this week on Let's Talk Dis. If anyone you know could benefit from this or any show, please share and have them like and subscribe. Don't forget to reach out to the folks at Easy Dis by Instant Impressions Travel Services for any Disney destination planning. Make it a great week, and as always, keep making memories.